I'm Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times with news from Arkansas on Wednesday, March the 18th. There was a happy piece of news last night long after we finished this program yesterday. Opponents of a piece of legislation that would allow private companies to operate public schools that have been declared in academic distress had planned a rally last night at the Capitol to stir up opposition to the bill. Not long before the rally was to take place, the sponsor of that bill, Representative Bruce Cozart, said he was going to pull the bill down for the rest of this legislative session. He'll try again next time. He'd run into a tremendous lobbying effort against the bill that grew beyond the Little Rock School District and grew beyond school teachers, the school administrators, the PTA, and a number of others. The bill was so sweeping it would have allowed expropriation of property taxes, of school facilities, breaking of teacher contracts, any number of things, and to put into the hands of private companies that don't have the same degree of accountability that the state does. It would truly have statewide impact, though the immediate impact would have been felt most in the Little Rock School District. It needed more study. It was beaten, and it was beaten on a bipartisan effort. There were Republicans that didn't like this bill either. They favored local school district control, which is something this bill would have ended. So that bill was beaten last night. It's during a session where not a lot of progressive things have happened, but that was one big victory, and it was particularly notable because the bill was being backed by the significant financial fortunes of the Walton family, which is pushing charter schools is the main plank of their education reform agenda. Little Rock schools remain in the headlines today. There's a hearing underway in Circuit Judge Wendell Griffin's court in which plaintiffs in a lawsuit against the state's takeover of the schools are arguing for a preliminary injunction to reverse that action. The state is out at the Supreme Court with a motion of its own trying to get Griffin's proceedings stayed until they can argue their position that the lawsuit is barred by sovereign immunity. That is, they say the state can't be sued in a lawsuit. Judge Griffin has already said they're wrong on the law on that, but the Supreme Court is yet to be heard from. There's a lot of news on the Justin Harris front. You'll have to turn to the pages of the Arkansas Times to find it. Two significant news stories in this week's edition. One is about a different case of child abuse involving a Division of Child and Family Services employee and a suggestion, not yet fully developed, but a suggestion made by several principals that employees in the Division of Child and Family Services didn't move quickly enough on a terrible case of child abuse that involved an agency employee. Unsettling news if true. The case itself is very unsettling. And there's also a deep examination by Leslie Peacock of a very controversial type of therapy that Justin Harris claimed he used on his daughters when they were his daughters and before he gave them up to another home where one of them eventually was abused by the man of the house. That story is going to continue to grow. A big legislative development is on what's going to happen on the so-called Freedom of Conscience bill. This is a bill by which religion may be used as a pretext to discriminate against people in any manner of life, whether it be employment, public accommodation, or housing. It's a reaction to the same-sex marriage rulings. It's about discrimination against gay people, but it has many unintended consequences across the spectrum. The Family Council, which has been identified as a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is strongly anti-gay, is pushing Asa Hutchinson hard to get this bill out of a committee it's mired in the Senate and get it passed. He's putting pressure on a Democratic legislator who's a key vote. If you know David Burnett, give him a call. Tell him not to fold to the Family Council on this bill. It would be one of the worst outcomes of the session. There are a lot of bad outcomes of the session. A House committee today just trashed a landlord-tenant bill. Arkansas has the worst landlord-tenant law in the nation as far as renters are concerned. It's been reported on over and over again, and it's going to stay that way. Opposition from realtors, bankers, and other private interests kill this bill again. Legislators say, well, if you don't like your lease, don't sign it. Well, that's easy for them to say, not so easy for poor people in a tight market who don't have much money to say. They're at the mercy of landlords in many cases, and they will remain so. Republican legislators, they hate regulation. They talk about it all the time, how bad it is, but there are a group of Republican legislators that have filed a package of proposals, all of them aimed at more or less the same thing, taking control of the Arkansas Activities Association. This is the private group, although it mostly operates with public money through school districts, that regulates high school sports in Arkansas. They don't like some of their classification things. They don't like some of the rules that pertain to private schools. They want to take it over. They want to have the governor, House Speaker, and Senate President in charge of regulating high school football. Why not? They do everything else from religion on down. We learned yesterday the sad news that a search had finally completed the search for the body of John Glasgow. the Little Rock businessman who disappeared years ago. His body was found in clothing and ID near where a skull had been found in Petit Jean State Park, about a mile from where his car was found the day he disappeared. They still don't know the cause of death. The medical examiner will investigate. Another piece of good news by my lights, the Presbyterian Church USA has now officially endorsed same-sex marriage. Although they won't make preachers do it who don't want to do it, but they've accepted it within the church. This is good news. As a sometimes Presbyterian, I don't know how many were left, but they say 1.8 million, so that's pretty good. And so I do wonder, I raised a question today in the blog, is if the new religious discrimination laws in Arkansas mean that you can discriminate against the Presbyterian if they're counting this kind of sinful goings on. We'll see. And finally, Mother Jones sent a reporter to Arkansas some weeks ago, and he talked to me. He's at work looking up every possible bit of unexplored dirt you can find on the Clinton family as Hillary Clinton gets ready to make a run for president. The results of his labors appeared this week, and the Democrat Gazette this morning ran a front page story on it. It's really earth-shaking revelation. They found a piece of paper in Dale Bumper's file that 33 years ago, Dale Bumpers may have remarked to his secretary, who took some notes, that gee, Bill and Hillary Clinton are really, really, really ambitious. They'll do anything to get ahead in politics. Well, that'll surprise you, I know. It didn't surprise me much. I'm joking, of course. I'm Max Brantley. I'll be back tomorrow.